Hey, it is any old gamer here today to talk about how I did not get G1 in RTA. But I came close, as you guys can see, ranked 2590. So what we're actually going to be doing in today's video is looking at my climb on the final day. I climbed 215 points on the final day. I went from C1, very top of C1, to almost, I actually finished G1, but I fell out as people passed me. So I climbed, I don't know my starting rank, but I was at 1596. I finished at 1811. I was ranked 2390 or something when I finished, but fell out as people passed me, which I knew I would. I knew I was short on the cutoff. But on the last stream, I was talking about this. Some people asked me if I would do a video on the climb, talk about the comps and how I drafted and so forth. Before we do, I just want to jump in, tell you guys a little bit about why I was C1, because I think this is a story a lot of people can relate to, and I think it's maybe important that a lot of people hear it. So this season, you can see I did 373 wings. Most of those were on stream, and I always play worse on stream. I didn't get super into RTA this season. I really just wasn't into it. I stayed Guardian 1 most of the season, but right around the cutoff level, like I never pushed up. I was never competitive. And then the last week, obviously, I started to fall down just as people passed me because I wasn't doing wings. So I did a few RTA matches on stream, and I just got busted RNG'd. I lost like 5 in a row. I don't even know if they were total RNG or if it was just me playing bad on stream, but put me on tilt. I wasn't feeling well this week, you know, such is life, and it put me on tilt. So I went in after stream, and I went to play to try and get the points back and go sit in G1, and I lost like 5 more in a row. Probably just got beaten all 5 times, honestly. In my head, it was like, oh, this is such BS. It's RNG. They got a million procs, blah, 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 blah. You know, it was one of those things. I was already on tilt. Realistically, they just had comps that I didn't have counters to. The correct approach at that point would have been to sit down, strategize, and figure out how to counter those comps, which were basically the Ciara Oki meta. I really struggled with that because it countered my team very heavily. Instead of trying to figure out how to counter those, I said, screw it, let's blow everything up, let's build a cleave team and see, because everybody tells me how crazy OP Savannah is and some of the other monsters, so I built an entire team that was between 302 and 306 speed. It was well speed tuned, but I did it in about 4 minutes. I didn't do it... I mean, I didn't do it in the optimizer. I didn't plan it out. I only ruined 6 freaking monsters. I was hardcore on tilt, guys, so I lost like 25 in a row. It was all stupidity. This is just, you know, it's a true story. It was all stupidity. It was just me having a bad day, whatever. And I dropped down to C1. And so then I was like, well, screw this. I'm not going to climb all the way back to G1. I'll just finish here. So I didn't do any RTA for a few more days. And then, you know, right before the season ended, I was like, well, let me see if I can at least climb back to C3. So I started playing, and I won like 15 in a row, or 15 out of 16. And obviously, being in C1, I had a slight advantage, but everybody was rushing that day. It's just that, you know, I had taken a week off. I was no longer tilted. I was focused. I really wanted to climb, so I wasn't screwing around, and I was climbing. So started to think, okay, well, I'll make C3 easily enough. And then when I got to C3 and I still had like almost 15 wings left, and I was like, hey, I've got a shot at G1. So that's what we're going to look at today. But I wanted to tell that story because I think most people can relate to that. We all have our bad days, and we all tilt, and we all just blow it up. and it can turn your whole season, guys. If you're tilting, walk away. Don't punch your tablet like I did 2 seasons ago. That was really expensive. Don't blow up your team and rebuild your team like I did last season. That was really, that cost me Guardian. So walk away. All right, with that said, let's take a look at my monster box first and foremost. Typically, I ruin about 35 monsters. We are going to switch the screen view here so that you guys can see the whole monster box. So there you go, guys. Typically, I have 30 to 35 monsters ruined. They're all speed-tuned to each other. So the first thing I'm going to tell you guys, when you're building your RTA team, there is, we all say the word team, but there is no such thing as like 5 monsters that will carry you all the way. You know, you don't have to necessarily have 30, 35 monsters built unless you're really trying to push into higher competitive levels. But you do need to have at least probably 15 monsters built if you're trying to get even into Conqueror or possibly even Fighter 3. You need to be able to counter a variety of teams. You're going to need something to counter Cleave. You're going to need something to counter Control. You're going to need your whatever your personal core team is. There's different kinds of Cleaves. You know, there's Japanese Cleave, the Belinus, the Lydia. So you need to be able to counter all of those things. The more things you can counter, the higher you're going to be able to push in RTA. Now, when you're building your team, when I say everything is speed tuned to each other, it really is. And the way I speed tune is by assigning roles. So, for example, Vigor's role is a defense breaker to set up my snipes. So he's at 234. And yes, guys, this was the same speed he was at when I finished Guardian 2. I play a turn 2 bruiser style. So with Vigor being at 234, for example, the Veligul needs to be a little bit behind the Vigor so that whatever Vigor defense breaks, if he's defense breaking fire, then Veligul has an opportunity to snipe it out. Same thing for Tyrannus. I want my Tyrannus to act in between Veligul and Vigor. Tyrannus, basically everything that can nuke acts after Vigor. Veligul, with the attack bar boost immunity, acts last. So almost everything on my entire box is going to act somewhere between the Vigor 234 and the Veligul 230 based on the turn orders that I want them to go for the drafts that I would have. There's a couple of exceptions where like Bulwark, for example, is going to go first because I want him to be able to further set up the snipe. So he can basically take a monster down to half, then Vigor comes right back. Vigor does the buff, which will restack the Bulwark, and on it goes. So when you're building your team, speed tuning is essential. You want all of your monsters to be as close as possible in turn order so that you don't get cut. For the most part, I have a couple of pivot options, but for the most part, this Bulwark and I think my Lauren and my Fran all right around 240, 241. That's my fastest. The Veligul at 230 is my slowest. Every single monster runs in that range. Every single monster is Violent Will, with the exception of like Rika's Despair Will. And I think like Juno is... you know, Despair Nemesis, but basically every single monster is using rune sets that fit together. So you don't want to use some monsters in Swift and some monsters in Violent together, because then you have this huge speed gap, you get cut, the Swift monsters don't really work as well with the Violent monsters, so you want to just kind of pick your strength and stick with it. Will runes, if you can, are very important. Obviously, Leo is not in will runes, so there's a couple of exceptions. Now, my core team, again, it's a bruiser team, so my core team is built around Vigor, Veligul, and Tyrannus. This is the team that I've run for the past 2 seasons. It did great for me 2 seasons ago. The only thing I really struggled with was Hathors, which if you've watched me on stream, I bitch about them all the time. But I did fine against everything else. Now this season, the Ciara Oki meta really gives me a lot of problems because usually that comes along with a Sekhmet and a Ganymede, so it's a reset control instead of a strip control. I mean, it actually is, it's single target strip because you got like the Sekhmet, the Oki are both stripping. Sometimes there'll be a Hathor or a Chiwu. But basically you've got like this strip control plus reset, and the reset gives me all sorts of problems. I really had trouble dealing with that. And it came up mostly in the last couple of weeks of the season, which is the time where I was actually starting to do wings and push. It's kind of what triggered my whole tilt episode. I built an Oki at 315, or 313, something like that. And I started trying to snipe the Oki, but then I had this huge speed gap and I'd get cut and still cause me problems. So once I actually started taking things seriously, and let's go ahead and move back to our normal view. So once I started taking things a little bit more seriously, I sat down and I realized that the way to go was to be able to steal that Oki, but to build an Oki that synergized with my team. Not in a huge damage dealing build. He's basically just super tanky. He's there for strip control. I've got some extra accuracy on his artifacts as well, so he's close to I think he's like 79 accuracy with the artifacts. Ultimately, I will probably move him in front of Vigor, probably. This was what I could do. You know, I was just building on the last day. This was what I could do without like breaking too much stuff. But I'll probably move him about 3 speed faster so that he acts in front of Vigor. I also rebuilt my Ciara. I did set her up to act behind the Velajewel because the Velajewel has the skill 1 strip. She's one of the few monsters that acts behind Vela. But once again, Violent Will. So if they first pick Oki, I can steal the Ciara, and she's built now to fit into my team. If they first pick Ciara, I can steal the Oki. That was pretty much enough. Just that one little change was enough to allow me to counter that meta. Okay, so we've spent enough time talking. Let's go look at actually some of the fights that I did on that climb. So obviously, you can only go back 15 replays. The very first replay, you can see this was one of my losses for the day. And this was a draft that I think I actually probably made a mistake with. So the Leo is new for me. That was the 2 changes I made to my team on the final day, were the Oki, which I've talked about, and then I added in the Leo. And with this match right here, he goes first pick Ciara, so I stole the Oki, as I mentioned. So I go Vela Oki, which became my standard counter to first pick Ciara. He comes back with the Vigor Fran, so I bring the Bulwark here. At this point, I feel really good. My first 3 picks absolutely crush his first 3 picks. I bring in the Beelzebub because he's not too likely to pull a Ganymede. He may pull a Sekhmet here, but I can ban, you know, either a Sekhmet or a Gany. So I feel confident bringing in the Beelzebub. He comes back with the Praha and the Savannah, and I pull the Leo to try and control the Savannah. I guess I don't really know what my thinking was here. It's just it was a new monster for me, and it was the wrong pick. But so we'll go ahead and watch the replay here. We're gonna put it on fast forward, at least for the start. So you can see Savannah, first of all, Savannah gets the strip on the Oki, which is, you know, attribute disadvantage. So that was painful to me. And because I didn't bring in the Tyrannus, I have no way to bring my Oki back. Now, right there, I gambled and tried to kill his Ciara with my Beelzebub. That was also a misplay. It wasn't a misplay, it was a gamble. I took a risk, and it didn't pay off because I wasn't able to kill the Ciara, and he did understand how Beelzebub worked. He went ahead and killed Beelzebub right there, and it was pretty much GG. We don't really need to watch the rest. You can see from here I've lost, but pretty much I made one mistake in the draft by bringing in the Leo. Even though he got banned, it was still a bad pick, and then I made one misplay where I gambled and lost. All right, so you can see our next draft. I was first pick. I went Tyrannus. He comes in with Vertihile Triana. And that just put me right into my core comp right here. I was able to get the Tyrannus Vigor, Velajewel. When I can get these 3 as a first pick, I am usually in really good shape. When I can get these 3 as a not forced first combo, because this right here very, very heavily counters this. Once you throw in the Bulwark, he's completely screwed. I banned the Ajir, and this was just a very quick fight. He was just out-ruined. There really wasn't much he could do there. So we move on to the next fight, and I will tell you, you're going to see I first picked Ciara. It's because I fought this guy earlier, and I knew he was a Ciara Oki user, so I went ahead and just first picked the Ciara to try and break up his comp. So he came back with the Molong Harmonia, which is, I kind of backdoored my way into a comp that I really, really do well against, because I'm super bruisery, and Lauren is just a huge counter to that. So the Ciara does not actually fit in quite as well in this this particular defense, but even so, I got the Bulwark away from him. I've got the double Resurrect between Tyrannus and Beelzebub. I've got the Lauren. He just has no clear ban. I do have a clear ban in the Sekhmet, and no matter what he bans, I'm going to be able to strip because both Bulwark and Lauren have strips, so then I can strip and just drop bombs with the Ciara. So we won that one. We move on to the next one where we've got another Molong comp, but this one was interesting because he went first pick Bastet. So typically first pick Bastet signals cleave. My counter to a first pick Bastet is Triana Beelzebub. Now I don't like picking Beelzebub this early in the fight because he is super, super counterable. He's a strong monster. He's my only LD5, and he's a strong LD5, but there are a lot of very meta counters to him. Anything that resets counters the hell out of him. Sekhmet, Okeanos, even Daphnis counters him, Ganymede, of course. Then you have stuff like Rocky and Mephisto, which you can see right here. So he's one of the most counterable monsters in the game. But if you don't bring in counters for him and you don't know how he works, then he's extremely powerful at the same time. He's great, though. Where he shines more than anywhere else is an anti-cleave, because he's always going to be my squishiest monster. So when they cleave me, they're going to have no choice but to kill him. He's going to come back and reset my entire team once you kill that second monster on my team. So typically I go Triana Beelzebub and I just deal with it. If they pivot into some sort of reset, then I have some other pivots to deal with it as well. For the most part, it's all focused around protecting him and then sniping out their reset. So in this place, he comes back with the Molong Harmonia. So we come back and we turn into more of a bruiser team now. The Triana, Tyrannus, Lauren, these all work really well together, and they set up the Beelzebub well. He brings out the Oki Mephisto, so he's got no immunity. I bring out the Ciara, and at this point I was trying to get him to ban the Ciara, so we'll go ahead and watch this replay. And you can see that he wound up not banning the Ciara, he banned the Tyrannus, but he gave me the Lauren, which was the most important part. Now he gets the stun on the Lauren. Right there I gambled. This Mephisto has to die. If the Mephisto does not die, then I lose. So of course I missed the bomb, I missed everything. But he makes a misplay here. So I got some bad RNG, but he did not push fast enough on my Beelzebub. He should have gone all out. And I missed another bomb there, by the way. But I just skill wonned the Mephisto out and finally landed a bomb on my third try. Had he gone all out for the Beelzebub, he might have had a chance to take me down. But to be fair, I had a lot of other threats on my team as well. Okay, so we're not going to go through all 15 wings, but we'll take a look at a couple of these closer to the top of the climb. You're going to see my drafts are all pretty comparable, but there are some pivots. So right here, anytime I'm first pick, if I don't know what the other person plays, I first pick Tyrannus. He comes out with the Fran Lydia, which is a little bit of an interesting combination. You don't see that too often, but it allowed me to just go into my core 3. So he brings out the Chiwu Diana. At this point, he has no reset, so I'm confident to bring the Beelzebub, which is a great counter to Lydia, because Lydia is AoE damage, and Chiwu is AoE damage. And then the only multi-hitter that he really has here that's a major threat to me is the Diana, so I bring in the Leica, which puts him at a big disadvantage. If I remember correct, and then of course I ban the Oki right here. If I remember correctly, he actually tried to go into the Leica with the Diana, but my Leica's kind of tanky. He's like 20-something thousand HP, and the Diana missed like 3 crits, and it was GG really fast right there. He basically lost on the draft, and I think he knew it, which is why he tried to go into the Leica with Diana. So we look at the next one right here, and we get, once again, this is really just core comp. The Triana right here was just a little bit of protection because he had a lot of snipe over here, and I knew I was going to let the Julienne through. So I just wanted a little bit of extra sustain. My Oki is not in a damage bruiser build. I showed you guys the stats. These 3 are all bruisers and damage dealers, but at this point right here, I'm expecting he's going to ban this Veligul. I felt like I needed a second form of immunity. And Amelia was just not really the right fit here because in human form, this Julienne would just wreck me. So I went with the Triana, who's very, very beefy. I've got her in triple HP, 45k HP and high defense, just to kind of balance things out here. We banned the Lauren there. So this next one right here, we start, again, my standard counter to the Bastet is the Triana and Beelzebub. He comes out with the Oberon Daphnis cleave. We can go ahead and watch this one because it's a lot of LDs. It's a more interesting, I think, more interesting match. So he goes Bastet. We've got the Beelzebub Triana, so we're going into anti-cleave. He comes out showing full cleave, so I come out with more anti-cleave. I'm assuming I'm banning the Nephthys. Here I am. He bans the Beelzebub, which is probably his best possible ban, but it does give me this Rika right here. And he's got, you know, almost no way to really kill this this Miho. He's going to be max crit on just about everything except that Bastet over there. And I do have double death prevention, so he gets the first kill, and he actually gets through both passives right there to get that kill. But by now, he's already given me too many turns with the Rika. He's got to focus on the Rika. And I'm just able to basically get everything killed out and get my Miho back to full health. And I don't know if it doesn't even get down to just Miho, I don't think. Maybe it does. Maybe we did wind up getting down to just Miho here. So you can see I'm focusing on the Bastet and ignoring the Ragdoll because the Bastet is the real threat right here with the heal block and the multi non-crit hits. I assume my Miho can just beat the Ragdoll 1v1. So once that Bastet's gone, it's pretty much over. Now, this next one is the fight that was the difference in my entire season. This fight with Dr. Wing right here. I only had 2 wings left at this point. If I win this match, I finish Guardian 1. You could definitely debate this. I feel like I drafted it well. I feel like I was a really solid favorite going into the fight. I definitely wasn't a guaranteed win, but I feel like I would have won this fight a lot more often than I lost it, and the RNG just didn't go my way. So he comes Ragdoll. I come back with Tyrannus Vigor, kind of a standard counter for me. He comes out with double AoEs with the Nephthys, so I bring out the Beelzebub. The Chung Pung is a super hard counter to everything for me. It resets my Beelzebub, it resets my Tyrannus, it resets everything. So I had to ban the Chung Pung. Now, right here, I get a proc from Velajul. That's the last proc I have in this match. He does not have a lot of damage over there. If I get 1 proc anywhere from here on through the rest of the match, I should win. If the Beelzebub procs, he actually dies to continuous damage and I win. If the Tyrannus procs, he gets to resurrect Velajul and I win. Same thing if Vigor procs, I get to heal. So all I needed was 1 proc anywhere from any of these monsters so that I could use a skill once I got out of that 2-turn silence. Obviously, the whole team's on Violent. He's gotten quite a few procs, mostly from the Nephthys. I don't know. I don't think his whole team was Violent, but the Nephthys proc several times, so I was 27% all the way. And I do think with 1 proc, I would have won. So I like my draft there. I don't really think there's anything that I could change based on the monsters that I have ruined. I think I drafted about as well as I could. He is a G3, obviously, but that was the difference in my season. If I win that match, I finish G1. I did wind up winning my last match right here, which is he comes out Fran Ganny, so I move into my core 3. He goes Oki Artemil, so I know I'm banning the Oki right here. Oki just counters me way too much. Since I know I'm banning the Oki, I gamble a little bit with the Beelzebub here because we do still have that Daphnis, but he doesn't have any strip other than the Artemil S1. And the thing is, Beelzebub is a really hard counter to Artemil because he does ignore defense damage based on HP status, and you can force the Artemil to hit the Beelzebub because it revenge procs, obviously. So my thinking right here, and this is also the reason I bring in the Bulwark, my thinking right here is if I can snipe out this Ganny, then the Beelzebub is just going to control this match from that point. I don't expect him to ban the Beelzebub because he's got double skill resets. And he doesn't. As expected, he bans the Velajul because he's trying to give his Ganny a little bit of free reign. He knows he's got immunity from the Fran, but I know that I'm bruiserish enough that I can usually just kill without needing a defense break. Now, I do have to gamble a little bit with the Beelzebub, going for the skill 2. I did get the proc right there, but, I mean, to be fair, my Tyrannus would have killed him. If I don't proc, the Diana doesn't have attack bar yet, and my Tyrannus would have killed the Ganny anyway. So either way, I'm good. And that's just something that I'm able to do against this type of team because I know I have enough damage that I can kill most Ganymedes. As long as there's no secondary threat. Like if I had to let both Oki and Ganny through and the Oki gets a reset, then I lose. But knowing that I only have to ban the Oki, I'm pretty safe. So we can go ahead and fast forward this. And at this point, obviously, he can't do anything with the Fran because I've got the Bulwark, I've got the Sustain. Now he actually goes ahead. Yeah, we're back to full health. It was over as soon as I was able to finish that Ganymede, honestly. The fact that he did not kill the Vigor until I killed the Diana, because you know the Artemil's not on Violent. Oh, I actually forgot that happened. So my Beelzebub was, oh. Yeah, I forgot that actually happened. So my Beelzebub didn't have his skill 3 up. But I don't think the Artemil was able to kill me fast enough. Now I remember this fight. I used the Beelzebub skill 2, not skill 3 is the passive. I used the Beelzebub skill 2 to kill the Fran. And so the Artemil revenge kills me right there. But I was able to resurrect it back. That's what it was. And then on the resurrect, we're able to kill the Artemil. So It's another reason why Beelzebub and Tyrannus work so well together, because the Resurrect passive for Beelzebub did nothing, but then the Resurrect passive for Tyrannus saved me there. Yeah. Anyway. So that's it, guys. That was my rush to, I actually was G1 when this finished. 1811 was ranked 2400, but it was like 9 in the morning, so I knew I wasn't going to hold it. But that was my rush from C1 to almost G1 in a day. So guys, that's it for today's video. I hope sharing some of my thought processes might help some of you guys out in RTA, but hope you enjoyed the video. Appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time. Hey guys, if you're still with me to this point, then that means that you probably liked the video, found it entertaining, or even better, both. So please smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment down below, because those things help the channel grow, and more importantly, they show me that the video is useful, and that's the whole reason I do this in the first place.